Okay, so today is the 11th day of Kislev, the 12th of December. And we're continuing with chapter 1 of the prohibition of the sciatic nerve. Okay. So we basically came to this we said. Okay, so we I think we ended with the tension between these two verses. One says, your thoughts are not my thoughts, says Isaiah, and Job says that from my own flesh I perceive God. And we said that even though this is not exactly from my flesh, there are examples of doing things from my flesh, but this is an example. Most of Chassidus is from my psychology, from my the workings of my psyche. So basar and regesh, feeling and flesh, are almost the same gematria. There's just one difference. We said the Chavot Yair says this, that they're the same, even though meaning you have to have a tradition when you use a kolo. So there's a tradition like this. Okay, so we'll continue now. V'nei midat chazdo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So where are we? Where were we? You can do it here, but here it is. V'nei midat chazdo. Daf Yud Gimel on top. והנה מידת חסדו של הקדוש ברוך הוא להחיות עולמות ונבראים רבים לאין תכלית יש בה שלוש בחינות הנ"ל. So since we can say it's the same thing by God, so now he's going to elaborate. So when Hashem gives life force, he is the life force of the world. Hashem is like the soul in the body. That's one of the most famous midrashim in the Gemara. כשם שהנשמה מלאה את הגוף, כך הקדוש ברוך הוא מלא את העולם. Just as the soul fills the body, so God fills the world. This is the aspect of Hashem that we call kutchabrichun. We call this the memale kol almin, right? The light that fills all worlds. So it acts like a soul to the world. So in the same way that by us, our soul, so we didn't fully we said this in passing, but let's say it more fully, that the soul and the mind is like one. It's neshamasha b'mochi, as we say. So there, the soul is one. It's not. The different aspects are not yet fully resolved. They're not separated. They're not distinguished one from the other. So Chesed and Gvura and Tiferes, all the different powers of the soul, they are contained like in the mind. And that's what we usually say. We say there's a representation of the entire body in the mind, because right, when it hurts, it doesn't really hurt here. It doesn't hurt in my hand if my hand hurts. It hurts in my brain. My brain has a representation that it's in so it tells me that it's in my hand, but it's not really in my hand. The pain is felt in the mind tells me that there's pain. So that's the soul that's called the rosh of the soul, the head of the soul. Then there's the soul in the heart. And how does the Zohar describe the soul in the heart? It says, Lev shaifin lechol ivarim. That the heart distributes to all the organs of the body, all the parts of the body. So there it's already separated into distinct parts. And finally we have the soul as it is in each one of the organs, in each one of the limbs. And there it's different also. So the same thing is also by Hashem. There's where is Hashem in the general sense, and then where is it where it's distributed. And then finally, how is it in each distinct organs? Except that when we talk about Hashem, it'll be different. It won't be organs, it'll be people or objects, but usually people. Of course, this immediately raises the question: is that how the soul starts? The soul starts in the brain. It doesn't start in the brain and the mind. The soul is from above. So there actually, even though this is not our topic, so we're not going to get into it in depth or even in passing, but just to say that. Of course, before Rosh Toch Sof, there's a level above that if you're talking about the soul, and if you're talking about Hashem, because there's a Sovev Kolamim, right? By Hashem, apart from the Memale, apart from how he appears as the soul of the world, there's also that he's beyond the world. That we usually call the transcendent aspect of Hashem. We call that in the Zohar the Sovev Kolamim. In the soul, we call this Tchila. Before the Rosh, there's Tchila. And Tchila means that there's a soul before it's even in the mind. Okay? It's like, it's before it's even manifested in any way, even inside the brain. And then, of course, there has to be another level, which is the soul in and of itself. That's called Kedem. And by Hashem, that's called Kadmon. So the same thing. It's the same idea. There's also in and of itself. Okay, but we're not going to get into all that. If we're talking about life force, we just have to finish at the end. So once you act, so let's say I throw a rock, right? Or I throw a ball. So I'm giving the ball kinetic energy. That kinetic energy becomes an extension of my soul. When I write, and my thoughts are now put on paper, so that ink on the paper, those words, they contain an extension of my soul. So there's even there's extension of the soul outside the body entirely. That's the Malchus already. That would be the after Netzach Hod Yesod. So the same thing by Hashem, it would be like that somebody feels that they are independent of God, that they act independently. They don't feel the life force, right? The ball doesn't know at all. That's already like Hishtaushulus. That's already like cause and effect. The ball doesn't know at all where the energy that's carrying it through the air came from. And the words on the paper that somebody reads and I wrote, unless I write somewhere by so-and-so, so nobody can know where this is really from. Okay? So it's just to give it so anyway, going back to Hashem. So Hashem also has these three aspects that we talked about, Rosh Toch Sof, the beginning, the middle, and the end. So first of all, we have the moichin, the mind of the chesed, like the way the soul is in the brain, in the head, in the mind. והוא בחינת החוכמה מתלבשת בו שהוא הטעם של החסד וההשפעה הזאת ותכליתה. שהוא כדי להיות לו דירה בתחתונים, וכיוצא. So what's the reason that Hashem created loving kindness? Why did he even bring it in? Because this is one of the reasons for creation. And reasons we said is like the taste of creation. So why did Hashem want it? Because he wanted in the end, the real reason is because he wants a dwelling place below. So he sees that in order to make a dwelling place below, he has to extend his loving kindness into the world. And here it's the reason of the word. It's like the motivator. What's motivating all the loving kindness that he does. And how do you do this? And this is done through the 613 commandments to bring Hashem's revelation into vessels. In other words, what's he saying? He's saying that any time that Hashem does kindness in the world, it has a purpose. He didn't do it for nothing. It's not just because, there's a way of saying it that says, Teva Tov Leitiv, that the nature of good is to do good. That's the way the Ramchal likes to write it down. The Ari also writes this at the beginning of Eitz Chaim. This is one of the famous reasons. That the good is to be benevolent, to do good. But that's Teva. That's nature. That's not a motivation. You can't say, unless you say, my motivation is to express my nature. That could be. But he doesn't say it like that. He says the nature of good is to do good. So that explanation would fit the toch. That would be the middle aspect of chesed. That it's Hashem's nature to do good. But here he's saying, no, there's a reason behind it. There's a motivation behind it. The motivation behind it is that he wants to create a dwelling place below. What's one got to do with the other? That if you want to grow anything, you have to have chesed. Nothing grows without chesed. You can't build anything without chesed. It's called, we saw this, by the way, in the previous, last week even. I think we saw it here. Yesh mefazer no, it's actually from the Torah Or and Vayeshev. I saw it last week, so I got it confused. He says, the Alter Rebbe says something very interesting. He says that a businessman works against logic. He says, if you want to make money, how is it that you're investing money? Because when you're investing money, you're giving it up. So what's the idea? Before you think of a businessman, you can go back to a farmer. So a farmer has X amount of grain. And then he takes a part of that precious grain that he was supposed to eat, and he throws it out. Okay, so he throws it out in the field, but he's still throwing it out.
Well, why is it against law?
Because you should eat it. You should eat it. You should use it.
He makes a cheshbon.
So his cheshbon is yesh mefazer v'nosaf od. Right?
That's part of the reason the Ukrainians starved. It's seed grain. That's what they call it.
Yeah, it's different type of grain. Right?
They were eating it, taking it.
Right.
There was nothing to plant.
Right. So it's against logic in some sense, but it's higher logic, because it says if you cast it away, you'll gather more. Same idea with a fisherman. You've got food and you throw it to the fish, and hopefully you get a bigger piece of food back. So that's the logic. And when it says when lo yod knani bebet Hashem, when we say there won't be a seicher anymore, like a businessman anymore in God's house, what we mean to say is that this logic won't work in the world to come. There won't be anything like that. It won't help you to invest. So get all the investments out of the way now. Finish all your investments. That's what it says. In the world, after the Mashiach comes, there will be no way to make money by this logic of yesh mefazer v'nosaf od. It's the same thing with mitzvos, with everything. If you want to invest, do it now. What?
This portion said, after Mashiach will be now 3 more mitzvot, our mitzvot.
Yeah. It will be like a Rei Miklat, like the Rebbe wants, where you learn Torah, you sit down and you learn. That's the type of... the Rebbe has a whole sikha. How can you say that there will be so many murderers and so on and so forth after the Mashiach comes? But this is very important for people to know. They don't know this. That's why Reb Usher used to say, I repeat this a lot, but Reb Usher used to say that when after the Mashiach comes, people are going to go to the trash in the middle of the night and throw out their money. They'll be embarrassed that they didn't use it.
Out to the Gula, out to the truth.
Yeah.
He had a life insurance.
He had a what?
Life insurance.
Yeah.
He went over, took it out of my plan,
Yeah?
$15. And he gave it to the Rebbe, and that was so.
One month on Friday.
Good.
They take 2.
Right.
But that's no good. You have to,
But it's not an investment. You get as much as you need. It'll be, the world will be exactly, you'll get exactly what you need. There won't be any more of this thing of investing to get back. Like the man, exactly. Lefia Omer. Every person exactly how much as he needs. In any case, that's why communism is so wrong, because it doesn't fit this world. It's from the world to come. In this world, it's a world of yesh mefazer v'nosaf od. That's how you have to work. So anyway, so what's the idea here? That mefazer is chesed. Levater. That's exactly what we said. It's the motivation to throw things out. That's chesed, to be benevolent, to give from my own. Why am I doing it? So Hashem says, because this is the only way in this world, we learn from Him, that the only way to build a house, to build my dwelling place below, is by doing chesed. Mefazer v'nosaf od. And then, when people see this, then it's called Torah's chesed. That the Torah is Torah of chesed.
It's also an investment of Hashem.
Right, it's his investment. הנה החוכמה הזאת לאותה כדי שיכירו הנבראים גדולתו יתברך לטוב להם כל הימים. And he adds here another thing. He says that this allows the creations, the creatures, to recognize Hashem's greatness. In greatness we mean His loving kindness, gdulato, so that they have they have a good life, all their days. הנה החוכמה הזאת לאותה פנימית, פנימיות החסד וההשפעה וסיבתו נקראת מוחין שלו. So this, because this is the motivation behind chesed, we call this the moichin, the mindset of chesed. ועצם החסד והטוב הזה הוא בחינה שנית. But the essence of itself, the nature of chesed, just the nature, like we said, that's the second, that's like the chagat, that's the toch, the middle. וימצא לפעמים שהסתלקות בחינת המוחין בחמת איזה פגם, כשלא ישלימו ישראל תרי"ג מצוות על דרך משל, כפי חיוב החוכמה והטעם, ואף על פי כן יהיה השפעת החסד והטוב מצד עצם מידת החסד להיטיב לראויים ולשאינם ראויים. Because sometimes you'll find that for some reason, for instance, because people don't perform mitzvot, because they sinned, whatever, so you might think that there won't be any chesed, but then takes over Hashem's chagat, God's feeling, nature of chesed, and that's where it's miteva tov leitiv. It's His nature to do good, and then the way you see it is because he's doing good to both good and bad people, to everyone equally. Good. So he says sometimes there may be a withdrawal of the mochin due to some flaw or deficiency, such as when the Jewish people fail to fully observe the 613 commandments, which is required by the wisdom. Because the wisdom and the purpose behind the kindness was to create a dwelling place below through the mitzvos. Nevertheless, the flow of kindness and goodness will continue purely due to the essential attribute of chesed, to bestow goodness both on those who are deserving and those who are not. As our sages said, the generation of Enosh was sustained by the kindness of the Holy Blessed One. Okay. So in that generation, the only way that they sustained themselves was thanks to the nature of Hashem to do good. What do you need? 5? Okay, so I think we'll end here.